This is Walter McCarty, your 6'10" crooner, and you know I got soul.
Let me just start out, talking about the new album you're working on, Emotionally. You're preparing to release it soon. What can we expect to find on there?
So really just relaxing music, music that I know I grew up listening to with a lot of real instruments, and I think it's really real R&B music. Not a lot of digital effects or voices, but just really good, strong music. Something that I have fun recording and writing, but I think it's just a strong project.
Cool. And you released your debut album, back in 2003. So, what kind of growth have you experienced in that time period as an artist?
I think during the gap between recording both albums, I think just really learning the tricks and trades of mixing and how to record and better ways to write and be successful. But also going out to LA and experiencing writing with different writers, going out and working with Harvey Mason Jr. And Tank, and just guys who've been doing this for a while. I think just working with them, really helped me to learn, how to write songs better, how to create songs, how to come up with different ideas, and how to put those ideas, on the CD.
Yeah. Okay. And your first album, you released it while you were still playing in the NBA. So, do you think this one will be more solid, just due to the fact that, you're no longer playing and you had more time to focus strictly on that?
Oh, definitely. I think that's the biggest thing, the assets of this album. And the first album, Moment for Love, was pretty much a trial run. I had fun recording it, writing the music to it, but, once basketball started, I was into basketball. There was no promotions, nothing to really, push that project. And now, for Emotionally, the thought behind it was to push this project and get it out there and let it be heard.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference with both albums. And with Emotionally, I matured so much as far as vocally and just really learning, being confident in the vocal booth and just really trusting my abilities and trusting my creativity.
Okay. Take me to your origins as a singer. When did you originally start singing, and when did you realize you wanted to do an album and have a career as a singer?
I grew up singing in the church. I remember my great great-grandaunt having us sing in church services at the age 4 and 5, going around singing with my brothers and sisters and cousins. And so I always grew up singing in the church and singing in concert choir and school and all this stuff. But when I grew up listening to a lot of Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder and Donny Hathaway and, then into the Boys II Men, Jodeci era and Brian McKnight. And I think, after about high school, when that era, I really started to experience writing. And I knew at that point, at some point, I wanted to, do music. But it was different because I was a pretty darn good basketball player. And, obviously that was going to open up the window to everything else. So,
yeah.
Once I got into basketball, it allowed me to purchase instruments and purchase recording stuff, equipment, and put myself in a situation where I could record and put out a lot.
Cool. Earlier you mentioned working with Harvey Mason, the Underdogs, and Tank out there in LA. How did you originally link up with them, and what was the whole experience like working with them?
Well, being a basketball player, people say musicians won't be basketball players, or basketball players won't be musicians. Well, Harvey Mason was a basketball player. He played at the University of Arizona.
Yep.
When I was with the Los Angeles Clippers going to practice one day, he was always at our practices because he worked out at the gym.
Yep.
And just ran into him there. Him and Justin Timberlake are out there shooting around at our practice. So I was asking around, like, who's this guy? He's here every day, and he's at all of our games. And who is he? Somebody. So I went up and spoke to him and introduced myself, and we started talking about music. And next thing you know, he's invited me to the studio, and we're in writing sessions together. So, and we've been friends ever since. So that's how it started. At a basketball practice, and just going up to introduce myself and took off from there.
Cool. And I know you worked with him in the Underdogs in creating the song "Come Back to Me, Shorty" for Tyrese.
Right.
Give me some background on that song and how that song came together.
Steve Russell, who's part of the Underdogs, he's the lead singer in Troop. He actually started the song out, and it was one of those things. Hey man, that sounds good. We really like that, and we all just start collaborating on it. And next thing you know, Tyrese is in the studio the next day recording it. So
yeah.
It was awesome. And what we did, we would just go to the studio every day, Harvard Studio, and we go in there about 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock, and we just started writing something. And it was just crazy. This artists would come through there all day, and they were, hey, I like that. And they recorded. And that's what we were doing every day.
Cool. Yeah, we love that one. We actually featured that a while back on the site, but we didn't even realize you were behind it. So I definitely went back in there and put you as a credit for the writing on there. So nice job.
Appreciate it.
Talk about when you sang the national anthem back in 2006 for All-Star Saturday Night. What was that feeling like?
It was awesome. Just be able to get up there and be asked to do it. They were doing something with all the basketball players and using their talents for that All-Star weekend. And fortunately, it wasn't my first time doing it.
Yeah.
And I did it at the University of Kentucky in Rupp Arena with packed houses, over 25,000. I did the first WNBA game at the Madison Square Garden.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it twice at Madison Square Garden. So just having those opportunities and those experiences to do it there was awesome. I mean, I think at the All-Star was probably the most star-studded group of people.
Yeah.
But it was cool because some guys didn't know I did that. Just walking off the stage and walking by some of the guys, Tim Duncan, man, I didn't even know you sung. Just getting those funny reactions. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, cool. So what would you say is the bigger rush? Getting up and performing in front of a crowd as a singer, or getting out there on the court, performing, playing ball in front of the crowd?
I think the bigger rush is getting out there and performing, because when you sing your music and you have a band behind you, you're able to touch people, I think, in a different way.
Yeah.
It's people go to watch basketball and they get excited when people dunk or make tough shots, or I don't think people get emotionally involved, though.
Yeah.
As you do. If you go to a concert and you listen to some of your favorite songs, or you listen to an artist who can touch you emotionally and really take you to some place where you've been before and you really feel what that artist is saying.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. Do you ever encounter people who say, oh, he's just some basketball player and now he wants to be a singer, he can't really sing, and do you ever encounter that type of thing?
Well, not in front of my face, but
yeah.
I'm pretty sure on paper or blog, certain articles, or somebody doing a story on me, or you're always going to have those people.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time, those people haven't listened to any of your music.
Yep.
Or really checked it out, because they're going off of maybe Carver was doing the national anthem, or an athlete who just takes it as a hobby or as a joke. So they haven't really studied what I've done, who I've worked with, and things that I've done in this business. So they're going to say what they want. But I think if you really listen to the music and you sit down there and give it a chance, I think you'll come away with a different opinion.
Definitely, I agree. Okay. And you mentioned a lot of people, especially players in the NBA, didn't even realize that you sang. Like you mentioned the Tim Duncan. So, are there other players that you've encountered in the NBA who can actually sing that people don't even know about?
Yeah, there's a couple guys. I know who are gifted musically.
Mm-hmm.
I know Ed David sings and he's not a bad singer. There is an NBA Legends band that's out with some older guys who sing. I'm not really sure with the new crop coming in, but I know there are a lot of guys who are musically gifted. Playing the piano and producing songs and that nature. But I'm not sure how many crooners, actual crooners there are.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you see as next for yourself? I know you've been doing some assistant coaching, and now I know you're doing this album. Do you see yourself, focusing strictly on music going into the future, or what do you see for yourself?
Really focusing on music, man. I think I've waited long enough this is a genuine passion of mine, and I want to go out and perform. I want to get on stages and perform and let my music, be heard. And, right now, we're just trying to get this thing off the ground, we're doing a fantastic job of, starting to move into radio. And our next thing is to put a promo tour together and go around and perform.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And, one last question for you. Do you have any comment on, I know you're no longer playing, but on the current lockout, do you have an opinion on that?
Not really, because I'm not doing anything with basketball, but it's a part of the business.
Yeah.
Everybody has strikes and layoffs and things of that nature. It's just because there's so much money involved in this, and there's people are really screaming with the NBA that they get kind of a backlash. But hopefully it's something that can work out. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But I'm concentrating on music.
Yeah.
I'm not even thinking about basketball right now.
All right, cool. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, we're really excited about the music, and I think we're going to keep pushing here and get on the smooth jazz charts, and just want to drive everybody to our website, waltersmccarty.com, and hit us up on our Facebook page and our Twitter at Walter McCarty. We just want to get our music out, get everybody involved, and hopefully perform across the U.S. for everybody.